We've got 13 attendees logged on and Leanne and myself. So good morning. My name is Megan Hutchison. I'm Kiama Council's Economic Development Manager. And this, as you can see, is all new to us. Council and the Business Chamber are thrilled to be able to bring you this webinar. Ironically, back in November, we had jointly decided to actually bring some online training to you guys. We were hopefully going to do a tax time webinar around April, May this year. However, the situation that we find ourselves faced with has really necessitated us to go online to bring you this series of webinars that we're going to be running initially over the next month. And we really wanted to get in and get some of these webinars happening sooner than later. Because they're so valuable to businesses, we want to make sure you guys feel connected and also feel supported in what both the council and the chamber are doing. I'll be honest, sometimes we feel very helpless about how we go about assisting businesses, and we really do rely on feedback and your assistance to help us guide us with what we can do in addition to what we're doing now. So that being said, what we're going to be doing today is, it's just a quick snapshot. Leanne's going to give you a snapshot and overview as to the current situation and financial situation and how your business can tap into additional resources. And then what we would like you to do through the Q&A section of this presentation, you'll see a couple of little boxes. I'd really like you to ask some questions of anything that you're not sure of, or anything that you'd like clarification on, and also anything that you would like to see us host for you in the future. I'm hoping that you've received the information about the next 3 or 4 different webinars we're going to be having on Wednesday and on subsequent Wednesdays. Glenn Hayworth is going to be presenting on digital connectivity, and in particular the first one is how to go from a bricks and mortar sales platform to online sales, and also he'll discuss supercharging Instagram and also advertising through Facebook, how to maximize those, and give you some actual real life examples as to how that's worked in reality for his business. So yeah, look, anything more that you'd like and any other topics you'd like us to cover, please don't hesitate to ask, and we'll try our best to schedule those for you. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Leanne Mitchell, who is on your screens from Numbers Count in Gerringong. We've worked closely with Leanne in the past on a number of different initiatives, and hopefully you will get a lot from Leanne's presentation. And as I said, please don't hesitate to ask questions. And Leanne, I'll hand over to you.
Good morning all, and welcome to the webinar. Today, just as an upfront, I run a business in Gerringong. I've been in Gerringong for just over 20 years, so a lot of you already I know you well. The first thing that I'd like to actually bring about in this very awkward time in most people's businesses, been aptly named disruptive really to most businesses, and it doesn't matter what arena that you've been into, it's disruptive to our lives, it's disruptive to our businesses, and it's disruptive to our normal way of doing things. And I coined a phrase that a friend of mine used the other day, which is business as usual in an unusual way. And I think that's the way that we need to look at this little period in operating our businesses. So my point today is to try and bring you up with a little bit of financial status in this new COVID-19 world. So over the last 2 weeks, we've had lots of initiatives thrown at us by both our federal and state governments, all of them well-meaning. And I think the thing that we need to understand initially is that what they are all up to is making sure that we can continue to operate, to keep businesses on some level in the arena of trading, or at least ready to bounce and trade when we get on the other side of this. So whilst some of you in business may feel like none of these initiatives work particularly for you, then it is a pity, but they are trying to look at those. And I can tell you the Institute and the Society are both in contact with all of us, trying to find out which clients are being left out of their loophole. Because initially the first stimulus obviously was thrown very much at employers to cover their PAYG instalments. So the first initiative worked very well for smaller businesses with employees, and that is the federal government's focus is to keep people employed and keep them busy. So that first stimulus package threw a minimum of $10,000 at each employer that'll be refunded and credited off their first BAS once you lodge that. Now we're talking about that BAS for the period 1st of January to 31st of March. Once it is lodged, they will start to credit those accounts from the 28th of April. So there's no great rush to get it in before that date, but you must get it lodged to get that credit. Now the win for the smaller businesses, so that counts a lot of my clients, is that no matter how many employees you have, as long as you pay wages, you will receive a minimum of $10,000. For those clients with more employees, where they withhold a greater than $10,000 sum on their PAYG for the quarter, they will be given dollar for dollar in a credit on those PAYG, on those BASs. Now, being clear that that will be for the period 1st of January to 31st of March. They will start to assess it on the 28th of April, which if you don't use a tax accountant to lodge your BAS, is your lodgement date. They will start to apply those credits from the 1st of May progressively. Now, they will offset against your BAS, and if there's any excess leftover refund, they have said that they will refund it in 14 days. I'm going to say I don't know how they think they're going to get all these systems in place, but they're really reaching high and trying to support. So we'll do our best to give them some backing to make that happen. The big piece, there are lots of little pieces and I will jump around. If you've got questions about them later, please. But the ones most relevant, I think, to the businesses that we're talking to today is the JobKeeper status. So the JobKeeper status was Scott Morrison's big pull out last week. And I personally think it's a wonderful scheme for the majority of our employers. It's not just hitting those who've had to close their doors, but those people that can utilise the staff and keep themselves running under a different banner in any manner that they can keep these people busy. So the real aim, as Scott put it last week, was to prevent all businesses from laying off employees so that they can keep them connected to their world so that they can bounce once this thing is over. Now, the conditions of that are specific at present, but unlegislated. So once it's fully legislated, we'll understand, but I have read a lot of commentary from the Treasury and from the Tax Office to say that they will be lenient on these conditions because the main aim is to keep people employed, because the only other option is to send them off to Centrelink. Either way, everybody will receive some money, but it's much easier to keep people connected to enable businesses to keep going. So there must be a 30% reduction in turnover. Now, it was interesting, there was a little question aimed at one of the legal firms that I subscribe to, and the Tax Office, and they used a Tax Office relevant example, which I think is really relevant. So Adam owns a real estate business with 2 employees. The business is still operating at this stage, but Adam expects the turnover to decline by more than 30% in the coming months. Now that was interesting because in all the original scenarios, it was based on the turnover in the appropriate period, being, and the way I originally interpreted that was March 2020 versus March 2019. And if you had had a drop of 30%, then this JobKeeper subsidy would apply to your staff. But that appears that it is not strictly the case. And in this example, Anne, who is a permanent full-time employee on a salary of $3,000 per fortnight before tax, continues to work for the business. And Nick, who is a permanent part-time employee of $1,000 per fortnight before tax, also continues to work for the business. So Adam, the employer, is eligible to the JobKeeper payment for each employee, which would have the following benefits. Now, what's interesting in that is that Adam hasn't had a downturn yet. He is anticipating a downturn. So there are a lot of businesses who have already gone through the downturn, forced to close their doors or forced to adapt. And there are probably some of you online who've had that scenario. But I've got lots of clients who are still actually trading out of the end of the normal world we came out of, but that they can see that starting to cease as we get into that sales reps not being able to go out on the road and things not being able to go on as normal. So whilst they are not finding it in the March period, they certainly will start to struggle in the April to May period. So in this tax office example, the business continues to pay Anne her full-time salary of $3,000 per fortnight before tax, and the business will receive $1,500 per fortnight from the JobKeeper payment to subsidise the cost of Anne's salary, and will continue. But Adam must continue to pay the superannuation guarantee on Anne's entire income. Now that's really a critical point for all employers to be wary of. But we can talk about that. That's a technical little point. The business continues to pay Nick. Now this has come up and I've had lots of people ask me this question. So Nick was only paid $1,000 per fortnight before tax, but he will get the $1,500 per fortnight. So he will receive his $1,000 from Adam, but he'll also get an additional $500 from the tax office. So Nick will actually be $500 per fortnight better off under this new scenario. The business will receive the $1,500 on his behalf and they must pay it to him. And then they'll give him his normal $1,000 and the employer, Adam, must pay the 9% super on that $1,000, but not on the additional $500 that he needs to pay to him. So Adam can register his initial interest with the scheme, which hopefully you've all done, is on the tax office website. If you go to the COVID-19, there's a link there that you press to register. And this is what's happening with the tax office. Currently you're registering and they will get back to you with some details about what they need. Adam is required to advise that his employees have been nominated for this eligible employees to receive payments, and he must notify his employees that he has done this. Now, whilst the current staff may still be working with him, they'll be in contact. But where you've stood employees down, or you have been stood down as an employee, you need to discuss that with your prior employer, because you can only receive one payment, either the $1,500 JobKeeper payment, or you'll get your Centrelink benefits one way or the other. The advantage, obviously, for getting the JobKeeper payment is to keep those good staff and employees that you've always had, keep them under your umbrella so that you're ready to go. You're not having to retrain staff. And it is a really good, I think, a really positive initiative. Now, but I think the difficult point for lots of businesses in that period is that there is an expectation that businesses will continue to pay those staff between now and the 1st of May, which means it'll come out of their cash flow. And at this point, there's no guarantee. There are no guarantees being given by anybody that you are guaranteed to get that payment. And a lot of people are very concerned about it. Now, it is not the intention, I understand, by this federal government to put people, make them feel dubious about that, but I can understand that some people do. And whether or not you actually have the money to continue that on. That is a point that they will have to address in the next week as we go into this state of how that actually engaging that will happen. Now, for those of you who are sole traders, you still also get that JobKeeper payment. So it is just a matter of proving to the tax office that you had a business, you had an income, you have an ABN, and that you have no work coming up. And you'll be reporting that monthly to the tax office in the ensuing period whilst they continue to give you those payments. At this point, there are no very strict arrangements about how that might look, but please, if you're in that category, please register. It's non-means tested, so if your partner works, if you were claiming under Centrelink, you would be under the new tax threshold of the $79,000. But if you're a sole trader and you've got an ABN and you've been registered for greater than 12 months, all of the reading that I've had from the tax office says that you should get that $1,500 per fortnight moving forward, which hopefully, the purpose of that is keeping us all going during this period. Again, no matter what your situation, the federal government are being very positive about trying to keep the doors open to their businesses and to keep staff employed. And if you're feeling like you're missing out, please ring the tax office and have that conversation with somebody, and they will guide you to the best place for your scenario. We've been promised that they will listen, and we've been promised that they will try and use their discretion to support everybody where necessary, as long as you are not trying to rort the scheme, which is really important at this point. It's just that everybody can get their money. There's a couple of points just at the end, without harping on all of the little technicalities. I'm just picking out the things that I think will be most relevant to the local businesses in this LGA. On Friday, Scott Morrison announced that he will create mandatory code for commercial landlords. And having listened to him, now there's nothing obviously passed legislatively on this either, but if you have a landlord and you've got a shop front and you've had to close that, or you've had a major downturn, he is recommending that you have a discussion with your landlord, and he is asking landlords to drop your rent as a percentage in accordance with the drop in your turnover. He's going to force people to have those conversations so that we're all in this together. And it is really important that in this financial stimulus arena, everybody's acknowledgement that we are all in it together. No one person's going to win out of this. We really have to work together to get the best and keep ourselves grounded and get through this period so we're all ready to go on the other end. There are lots of facilities out there. The tax office, the New South Wales State Government, Services New South Wales have a helpline. Now that helpline, those people have been trained, we've been told, to support you with the knowledge of what the New South Wales State Government is offering, as well as what the federal government and what Centrelink are offering. So if you feel unsupported, by all means, give those people a call, because that service is set up as support basis for this COVID-19 period. The other thing, on Friday, Gladys announced a $10,000 grant. Now, she specifically stated it was for mum and dad companies that have less than 19 employees. They must be based in New South Wales, and they must have employed staff as at the 1st of March 2020. This is a one-off grant, so it's just a receipt payment. It's not a continual grab for money. And the aim of it is to support those businesses directly impacted by the public health COVID-19 restrictions on gathering and movement, because there are a lot of businesses that just cannot trade or are so extremely hindered in being able to trade during this period. So between that stimulus and being able to keep your staff on and pay them a base wage during this period, I think we're coming together with a fairly good solid package to support us all to be at the other end of this. It is what I describe as quite a cloud. We're in a period of that we're not sure what's going on around us, but I think every morning to wake up and be very clear and be realistic with yourself about what's actually happening to your business. It's very easy to get caught up with what's being exposed and discussed on television and media, but I think it really is important when you're in small business to get a handle on what's actually happening in the four walls of your business for you specifically. What's going well, what isn't going well, and what do you really need to address? These are really difficult times, and there are lots of supports out there to give you a hand to get through this little period. Of course, the most difficult thing, and if we don't have an answer for this for anybody, is we don't know when this is going to end. Nobody's able to give us an idea of how long we've got to hold this together and how this might look on the other side. So it's important that we work together and stay connected and remember that we are all in this together, and that the federal government is trying to provide us some stimulus and support to keep us going and managing through these difficult times. I think I'll leave it at that. That's a lot of information, and I hope that some of that was helpful and hit the point for you. But at this point, I'll hand back to Megan. I think we're going to move into the Q&A period so that I can actually get to addressing some of your individual questions and supporting where I can. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you, Leanne. I'm not sure if you can hear me or see me.
Yes.
Can you see me?
I can.
Okay, good, because I can't see myself. Look, nobody's actually asked any particular questions, so I think you've covered off the relevant points and provided a really good overview. Actually, so they have. All right, there is a question here. Does the JobKeeper apply to sole trader companies owned by a trust?
That is a little bit of a technical, I'm assuming, and I am assuming that this question is actually related to beneficiaries of trusts. So what can happen is that we have some clients in businesses that don't actually receive a wage as such, but they have a distribution out of a trading trust entity at the end of the year, and it's referred to as a distribution of beneficiaries. Now, at this point, it hasn't been specifically discussed in any of the announcements, nor is it addressed in the legislation support papers, but I would register. I do believe that under the JobKeeper sole trader arrangement, you should be included. I know that the Institute of Chartered Accountants are right on top of this, because obviously even for a lot of accountants and solicitors in service trust industries and those associated admin arrangements, that is how they get paid. So they will address it, but if you're in that situation, I would definitely hit that register for JobKeeper and have that conversation with the tax office and at least get an answer as to how you're actually relevant. But I do believe the intention is to pay everybody, and that is just a form of payment that isn't a wage and salary.
Okay, thanks for that, Leanne. There's another question here of what was the name of the one-off payment you mentioned for mum and dad businesses?
Okay, it is a state government grant, and it's under the stimulus. If you have a look on the Services New South Wales site, it is called, I haven't actually got the name of it. It's on the Services New South Wales site. If you have a look on there, it's, sorry, I don't have the name of it, but it went up on Friday, so it's only the newest of grants, because there are the two grants. There was a $10,000 grant that was part of the bushfire appeal, and that's what Gladys said after the success they had with that $10,000 grant. They were releasing another $10,000 grant for these mum and dad businesses. So if you go onto the Services New South Wales website and under COVID-19, which comes up on the top of their banner, if you click there, you'll see there are 4 announcements, and it is the last one.
Thanks for that, Leanne. And another one. So we are a company still trading, and we still need to register with the federal government for the JobKeeper allowance?
Yes, everybody has to register. And I have to say, I got a little frustrated because I rang the tax office and said, can't we just apply for all of our clients all at once? But every single trading business has to register for themselves. So that was the example I gave of Adam's situation, that real estate agency business, that you, even though you're continuing to trade, if you believe you are going to be affected, even if it hasn't quite happened to you now, but you can see it coming, then please register.
Yeah, and just another, I noticed this morning that they've announced that not-for-profits, I think they're eligible to apply as well. I think their turnover only had to be down by 10%. Did you hear that, Leanne?
No, I didn't this morning, but there's been a real focus on looking after the not-for-profits. They will make a whole different set of scenarios, I think, for the not-for-profits. There was discussion on Friday afternoon on a few different forums about how they were best going to do that. But I think the amount of money that's been thrown at them on both a federal and state level, they're looking at the best ways to support the not-for-profits to be able to be the best support to the people who are being affected on all of the mental health and social issues and just the capacity of the aged care facilities. They're being very, very generous with looking after them. So I imagine there'll be a few more yet on that not-for-profit front.
Yeah, yeah. There was another question here. Can you explain the bank's offer to have repayment moratoriums?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, and individually you can apply based on your circumstances to the bank to get a moratorium on your payments during this period. Now, what I believe this means is that they will freeze your repayment responsibilities, but the interest will still appear on your loan statements and it will become accumulative. So it'll just get added to your loan. So if you had $1,000 interest payments each month and you didn't make them for 6 months, that $6,000 will accumulate onto the top of your existing loans. So whilst it allows you the facility of not having to make those payments during that period, it will be added to your loan to be looked after at a later opportunity. I'm going to suggest that whilst it's not a best case scenario for everybody, if it gives you breathing space and it helps you get through this difficult period, then by all means, please take advantage of it.
Okay. And one more question. The question is, I've been a sole trader for 2 years and in that time have not employed anyone. I have also not paid myself a wage. Any profits received have been invested back into the business. So basically I have worked for 2 years with no income from the business. Am I eligible for any support? I have an ABN number as a sole trader.
It's interesting and more, I think, relevant to regional than it is even in the city areas. How often we have these small sole trader businesses that in the end we do out of our passion and our love for what we do. We don't always make a lot of money out of it. But it would appear to me that under the JobKeeper tab, they've specifically said businesses without employees, sole traders, can also register for the JobKeeper from 30th of March 2020. So I would go ahead and register. All they're asked after is that you have an ABN, that you can prove that you were turning over and you were earning money, so that there was some sort of sales in your sole trader business. They're not asking you to prove what your profit was at the end of the period. In fact, not in any of these stimulus by the tax office is anybody concerned about what the bottom line profit was or is. So it's very based on what walks in the door, who you're employing and what you're turning over. So I would definitely apply for the JobKeeper because I do believe that you are meant to be caught under that umbrella.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Leanne. I think that's you've answered those questions brilliantly. I don't know whether you can see. I think we'll wrap up there. I think that was a fantastic first webinar. I know you've answered those questions fabulously. I think the message that we're trying to get across here is that there's so much information that you and your business needs to glean, that you need to actually go to your financial advisor. You need to get some good financial advice, find out what it is that you're entitled to, because the situation is very fluid. It's changing rapidly and it's changing on a daily basis. Very hard when you're trying to sustain a business to keep up with all the rules and regulations and the changes that are occurring. Thank you very much, Leanne, for your expert knowledge today. It's been fantastic. As I mentioned earlier, the Kiama District Business Chamber and Council will be bringing you these webinars every Monday. From next Monday, they'll be running at 12 o'clock. They'll be short, sharp snapshots of what's happened in the last week. And also from next Monday, there'll be an innovation element included in this little webinar to try and, encourage businesses to think outside the square a little bit. And we'll also be showcasing a local business that is using some innovative practices to stay afloat and to increase their opportunities. Also on Wednesday at 12 o'clock, as I mentioned before, the webinar that we're having, that we're hosting, is how to take your business from bricks and mortars to online, and will contain a lot of information about online sales and online shopping and how to be more effective and set that up, which is absolutely critical in this climate. So in the meantime, as I said, if you've got any recommendations, suggestions, any feedback, so that we can make these sessions a lot better and more beneficial for your business, or any topics you'd like us to cover, please don't hesitate to email me. Most of our communications are being done by the business database. The Chamber has their database and they're distributing information, and Kiama Council also has their Facebook page and community group, which we're distributing information as well. So I think that's enough from me. And again, thank you, Leanne. And thank you all for logging in. We had 18 participants in the webinar today, which is fantastic. We may even be able to set this up, rather than a webinar, depending on how many have logged in, more of a meeting, which means there'd be more interaction between the businesses, and we'll be able to see each other and also have more of a chat. So on that note, I'll end the meeting, and thanks for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you next Monday. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.